Okay, good morning, everybody. I've had a request to move a little bit away from the the FHSA Music First Classroom stuff. So I want to do this next unit away from that. We're going to be talking about Gamelaan music, which is music from the Javanese and Balinese islands of Indonesia, which is very unique type of music. The traditional music of Indonesia is played by the Gamelan ensemble. The gamelan can refer to the instruments or just the general music. So it can be specifically the instruments, but also the style of music. I have here a picture of a very traditional gamelan orchestra. I want you to notice a couple things about whenever we listen to music from another culture. I always go through the who, what, where, when, why of what I'm looking at as well as what I'm listening to. So right off the bat, some things that you may notice is they're all the musicians are in a sort of designed space for the instruments, right? Which is pretty cool. Very decorated, very ornate. The men playing this music right now, right, is mostly actually entirely men in this picture. They're all wearing a traditional outfit. They've arranged themselves in a particular orientation, so they're all facing one way. And then there's a lot of different types of instruments, right? We see aerophones in the front, but mostly we see these idiophones or gongs in the background. So yeah, lots going on in this picture. We haven't even heard the music. I also want to draw your attention to these figures drawn on carved on the instruments. These are traditional Indonesian characters that they've drawn, and they have a very specific style in the style of shadow puppets. Shadow puppetry is a big deal in Indonesia, and we'll talk about that on our next slide. Some history of Indonesia, right? It's in the South China Sea, in the Pacific Ocean, really. It's south of China. Oops. Indonesia is an island country made up over 17,000 islands. There's 261 million people that live in Indonesia, so a lot of people. 700 languages are spoken, and it's the largest Muslim majority country in the world. So that's a fact that always surprises me. Is the largest Muslim majority country isn't a country like Saudi Arabia or Pakistan or something. It's actually Indonesia. It's a giant, massive country with lots of people. The country has been conquered by many different kingdoms or governments in the past. In the 2nd century, right, the Hindu and Buddhist kingdoms created their own their own nation. Islamic sultanates from Iran and from ancient Persia and from that area of the world came down and actually took over Indonesia, right, in the 13th century. You may have heard of the Dutch East India Company. Those of you who have played the game Assassin's Creed, perhaps, right? They came and they took over the whole country. And colonized it as an effort to extract the wealth of the nation, right? The Japanese occupied Indonesia during World War II. This is the battle flag of Japan, and other countries as well as Amsterdam. Not Amsterdam. The Dutch, right? I said countries. The Dutch and the English came and took over Indonesia as well as Portugal too. So a lot's going on there culturally. Like northern India, Indonesia has been governed by many different principalities, nations, and companies. But unlike northern India, which performs raga, the classical music of Indonesia has stayed relatively outside influence free. Okay, so it's something to think about. Let's talk about a couple of the different types of roles that the instruments play. The kendang, sometimes it's pronounced kembang, has the function of keeping the tempo while the changing of the density and signaling some of the transitions of the song. So it's a pretty involved instrument of the gamelan ensemble. We have gongs, right? We talked about Chinese gongs. These are Indonesian gongs, and their gong's role is to help the ensemble keep kendang, right, the beat cycle, as well as add interesting tunes. And I read this actually. So gong is one of 2 Indonesian words used in English. The other is ketchup. Ketchup is an Indonesian word. And the gongs are distuned. They're not pitched in a way that Western ears would hear the pitch. And a lot of Indonesian culture is based, a lot of Indonesian sensibility on their instruments comes from how distuned the instruments are. They believe like each instrument has a specific characteristic or spirit to it. It's interesting enough. The sarong and the slentum are both instruments that play distinct pitches in the gamelan ensembles. They can either play 5 notes, also known as slendro tuning, or 7 notes, peleg tuning. And these instruments are hammered. So we have sort of like a marimba type idiophone here, or xylophone, although this is, I believe, made of, the keys are made of wood, and the resonators are made of, the keys are made of metal, and the resonators are made of wood in many cases. So metal keys more attuned to xylophone. Indonesian shadow puppetry, often these musicians are playing for shadow puppetry. So this is what it looks like in some ways, and I have some recordings. But the puppet theater is a beloved part of Indonesian culture, and the puppets tell religious and secular stories, as well as Indonesian folklore. So we saw in the first slide some characters that looked on the side of the instruments very similar to the shadow puppets. This is like the folk form of Indonesian shadow puppets and shadow characters. 2 styles predominate. They're Javanese and Balinese. And our do now is to listen to the different styles and describe them using our Google Classroom interface. Now I'm going to play a couple examples of these, and I want you to just check them out. This first example is a Balinese gamelan ensemble, and recorded in 1985. So a good amount of time ago. Things were maybe a little bit even more authentic back then in the culture of Indonesia. And these guys are, notice the setting, like where they are, with the role of each instrument. Just take a listen to it. So they're outside. The music is very involved, right? Metal keys, and they play with hammers and muting their instrument with their hands. It's pretty cool. This guy, I was about to show you, he's playing the kembang, which is like a beat cycle thing, right? They're shifting tempos. My point is, it's a pretty flashy performance, pretty flashy. Balinese music. Here's another example that I have. Check out this one. You can listen to these in their entirety. I'll be sure to post them. So pretty fast tempo, pretty fast paced. really exquisite music, very unlike anything else, really, in many ways. This is the other style. It's called Javanese gamelan music. You'll notice a distinct difference right away, I believe. It's the first time Sadie has stopped screaming in about an hour. I guess she likes this music. We'll skip through Neil deGrasse Tyson's masterclass. Okay, here we go. Oh, this is a long video, so you don't have to listen to all of it. Okay, so this is pretty characteristic of the Javanese style. It's a little less flashy, a little more, you know, in the pocket of a groove. Some people describe it as more relaxed. Right. So that's my point. The point that I'm trying to make right now is the gamelan, the Balinese style is more flashy, more fast-paced, very frequently, and the Javanese style is a little more relaxed, a little more in the pocket. Great. Please take our quiz that I'll be posting on Google Classroom. Stay tuned for any do nows and writing assignments, but I hope you'll find these materials a little bit more accessible than the FHSA materials that are there. Sometimes they're difficult to access. And I really enjoy this music. My father used to work in Indonesia a lot, and growing up, he would have his Indonesian friends come over, and they would always tell me about the shadow puppets and show shadow puppets and stuff. So it's a unique culture and a very unique style of music. Okay, signing off. Good luck. I'll talk to you all soon.